Any names, places, or license mentioned are used for life stories and may be original or speculative. The opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not reflect those of Cosmic Crumbs and do not reflect no guarantees are made regarding the accuracy of the information regarding. We are not responsible for how this content. We are not responsible for how this content contains vulgar language and sensitive graphic material. Viewer discretion is advised. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well, good evening and welcome to the fourth episode of Cosmic Crumbs. I'm your host and I'm here to take you through a bunch of delicious recipes and then get into some storytelling. It's going to be a good show, full of high strangeness and fresh recipes. So stay tuned. And I'm just checking all of our numbers, making sure all of our gauges are reading right. I'm going to turn the chat on if there's anybody out there. Make the chat big. And I think we're in business. So welcome to this week's episode. Got some crazy recipes and some kind of like recipes that I just threw in here for fun because it's funny, but some of these recipes legit look insane. And then we're going to get into sort of where we left off yesterday, or not yesterday, last week, with the reading of strange happenings that people have submitted as first account occurrences on the Reddit thread that we were checking out last week. So with that, let me get everything. I still can't tell. What's up, Crystal? I'm just making sure that everything. Hey, Carrie. Everything looks good here. Everything looks good. Okay. If for some reason you all can't hear this, you just let me know and I will fix the audio. But everything should be good to go. It looks like it anyway. Let me see. Big. I think we're going to go regular. Maybe wide. I don't know. Okay. First recipe this week is a Michelin recipe for pancakes. And the reason we're starting out with videos, I didn't have anybody that submitted the recipe last week. I'm sorry. Cecil said he was going to get a book and start like just submitting 1800s joke recipes or something. That's fine. But if you all think of recipes, Morgana had sent me some pictures of some beautiful tater cakes that she made with leftover mashed potatoes, which looked amazing. I told her to submit the recipe just when she has a chance. And I think she's going to start submitting some stuff too. But if you think of anything, submit it. No matter whether you think it is going to make the top 10 list or not, all are welcome to submit whatever you want to. And I put a ticker down there today. So you can submit your strange stories, your spooky stories, your scary stories, your recipes, and sign up for the spam mail list, which is going to get you on the list to receive all of the recipes that we talk about on the show and any user submissions. So as we do get user submitted recipes, you'll get those in your email every week. And eventually, hopefully, this gets big enough to where, you know, we can spend a good amount of the show on people's personal stories and recipes that they submit. But I've seen a bunch of people sign up for the spam mail, which is awesome. Look, I'm not judging, Carrie. I understand everybody's super busy. I've been busy too. You know, we're doing a lot of things on the other shows that I'm on. And, you know, I think you all know this, but, you know, I do a lot of the stuff behind the scenes, especially with things like guest bookings and everything else. So I've been wheeling and dealing with some guests. And then next week on this show, we're going to have our very first guest who, if you've seen me on other shows, you already know. Her name is Caitlin, and she is from a paranormal and spirit guide company called Unbound Underground. She's going to be coming on. We're going to be talking about food. We're going to be talking about spooky situations that she's been in. A little bit of everything. That'll be a good show, great show. But with all of that out of the way, if you don't already follow, go ahead and follow. But we're going to get started with recipes. Check out these pancakes. Whenever I first saw this, I'm like, this legit looks like a hamburger bun. Like if you were to just look at this and take away the butter and the syrup, it legit looks like a hamburger bun to me. So I want your all's opinion on whether this looks like a legitimate pancake recipe or not.
It's thing you could ever do for a family member, make these sexy little pancakes. It's an at-home version of a Michelin star pancake recipe. The restaurant is called Pavilion. An amazing creator and chef called Sean came up with this recipe, and we've kind of been playing around with it for a while to make it the best pancake recipe we could possibly do. One of the main problems that we get with pancakes, they're really great when you cook them straight away and beautifully fresh, but within minutes they typically lose a lot of fluffiness and a lot of lightness. There's a couple of techniques and methods in this recipe that helps to sort of secure structural integrity of the pancake. 8 cold egg whites in a bowl. Lemon juice. Lemon juice actually elongates the time that you can whip it for without it kind of splitting and collapsing. This is one of the techniques I learned from a really good old school show by Raymond Blanc. We always see people whisking like this, but it makes your arm tired really quickly. So if you know you're strapping in to do some long whisking jobs, hold your whisk like this, and then basically just let the whisk go back and forward, and you'll basically be able to whisk for 10 times longer than you would normally. That's been whisking for around about 8 minutes. This is what we call soft peaks. It's not really stiff, but it kind of doesn't move around when you wiggle it around. We've got some caster sugar in here, so add half the sugar, whisk it for a little bit of time, and then add the rest. This mix, without being stabilized in some way, to be honest, it completely deflates. So the way that you stabilize that is by using a little bit of cornstarch. So cornstarch goes in, and then continue to whisk until we have nice firm peaks. Now we're going to add our egg yolks to the mix. 5 egg yolks go in. We'll make it a little bit looser, but it's also going to add a lot of richness to the mix at the same time. I'm going to put in some salt, and the flour goes in as well. Lightly folding it. So you've just worked so hard to put all that air in there. Just be really gentle with this stage. We want to work nicely to get all of that flour incorporated in there whilst keeping as much of the sort of natural air that we've already incorporated into that mix. And then just add a touch of milk. Now it's almost too fluffy at this stage to make a really nice connection with the pan. So the milk just helps sort of let it down a little bit. You should have this beautiful...
I thought it almost looked like cake batter. You follow him, Carrie? I don't know. I'm going to keep going, but it almost seems like when you're making a cake or a pie, but
sort of voluminous, like very...
I guess it is a cake. It's a pancake.
Shiny cake mix. A nice non-stick pan. Non-stick pan is really important. Put in our first bit of mix. So you want to move fairly quickly whilst putting the mix in. The process is going to start with it cooking straight away. The way I'm putting the mix into the pan is kind of mimicking how I want it to set. I don't want to flatten it all the way to the sides of the pan. And then my little hack, which kind of mitigates the need to use a steamer, is just to put this little plate or bowl on, something that fits over the top. The heat is on the lowest setting it can possibly go. So don't worry, it's already got all of the air in there. Normally when you're cooking pancakes, you need a level of heat to make the bicarb and baking powder sort of react, and then you get the lift. It's the opposite way around because this has already got the air in there. The golden rule is basically low and slow with these ones. Now this is the moment of truth. Your wife's affection and your kid's breakfast hangs in the balance. 1, 2, 3, flip. Oh!
Did you see how thick that was? I mean, what do you all think? Me personally, this is too thick of a pancake for me. I don't like pancakes to be like super bready, super thick. I like the thin, and you get the thin pancakes where you get the crust on it. Like that to me is chef's kiss. This is, even though it's a Michelin star recipe, I'm sure it's great. It's just too bready for me.
So close. That's the one that I'll eat then. But to be honest, it still looks pretty damn good. Plate goes back on. We're going to finish that cooking for around about 5 or 6 minutes. Obviously important to mention, if you have a pan lid.
If it takes 6 minutes aside also to make a pancake, that's insane. I can cook burgers quicker than I can make this pancake. It just doesn't, I don't know. I know I'm kind of going hard on this one. It just don't appeal to me personally, but I put it on here because I know everybody's got different tastes, and I want everybody to feel included. So I'm putting recipes in every week that I personally might not eat, but I might give it a run if you guys can convince me.
That would work better than a bowl. This pan didn't come with a lid. It doesn't need a huge amount of time on the other side. Have you ever seen anything as beautiful as that? Just got some nice cold butter, and then do not shy away on the glaze. It's probably the nicest thing.
Yeah. So that's that. Carrie says, I do never made anything from him though. The pancakes, yeah, maybe. Well, again, I'm not a Michelin star chef. I'm just a backyard self-taught chef that has just learned. Well, I don't even call myself a chef. I'm a cook. And, I've learned my recipes just from people over the years. You see something looks good, figure out the recipe, figure out what you like, what you don't like about the recipe, make tweaks. And then, as I make things that people do enjoy, I tend to share the recipes and all that good stuff. But that is the first recipe of the evening. And the next recipe is going to be more bread. It looks like. I think that's just music. Oh, I do want to make these. It's a apple fritter focaccia. And we made the recipe, if you remember, if you've been here since the beginning, we're on episode 4 already. If you've been here since the beginning, we had a recipe a couple of weeks ago that was just straight up focaccia. And I made that recipe over the weekend. Well, I watched it be made. I partook in the eating of the focaccia, and it was insane, off the chain. So if you haven't made that yet, go back, look at the recipe, even just watch the video back. That recipe was off the chain, and I think this one will be too. I'll let it play again. So she is dumping this in like apple pie filling and then dumping it in like a cinnamon mixture. She said that she dipped each focaccia ball into homemade apple pie filling and then coated them in a cornstarch sugar mixture before arranging them in the pan. That cornstarch coating is the secret to getting those perfect pull apart pieces that don't stick together. Then she finished it with a caramel vanilla drizzle. This looks heavenly. It doesn't say what temperature she baked these at. So I would just look up maybe a standard focaccia recipe to do the baking part of it. And also she did sourdough. So if you're not doing sourdough, you may want to compensate for that. What's up, Landa? And I agree, Carrie. Michelin star doesn't always mean good. But somebody somewhere thought so. Everybody has their own tastes. There's stuff that the general public can agree on that tastes great for the most part. But there's people out there that don't like steak. So everybody's going to have their own tastes. Landa, if you're just joining, before this recipe, we watched a fluffy pancake recipe, and that's not really my thing, but I'm including everything that I think you all might enjoy, even if I don't personally enjoy it. But this was the caramel apple fritter tear apart focaccia. So that will be in this week's spam mail for everyone to try. The next one is absolutely off the chain, in my opinion. I don't even like sweets. That's how good this looks. Look at this. I mean, you can already tell. It is a black velvet cinnamon roll cake with no dairy and no eggs, which is nuts, like on its own. But check this out.
This is my black velvet cinnamon roll cake. The cake is drenched with...
Look how juicy that cake is. If you like dry cake, this isn't for you. This is a juicy cake, but
that gooey center of a cinnamon roll filling. The cake itself is so pillowy and soft and moist with the cream cheese frosting that has seeped into all the little spaces. Each slice and bite is an experience, and it all melts in your mouth. I promise you will fall in love with this. The recipe is waiting for you in the caption.
Let's check it out. So the full recipe for the black velvet cake, we got 2 3/4 cup cake flour. I'm not going to read all the measurements, but it's cake flour, baking powder, baking soda, sea salt, black cocoa powder, Dutch processed cocoa powder, Majestic, organic cane sugar, non-dairy milk, apple cider vinegar, non-dairy yogurt, neutral oil, vanilla bean powder or paste, and then hot water. Yeah, the voiceover. That was more ASMR than recipe. But in this case, the recipe for me really did it. Like seeing this cake, I was like, I gotta save this because somebody, including myself, has to try this cake out. The next, maybe for my next friends get together, I'll throw this cake together. And if you're not lactose intolerant or something like that, you could totally sub, the non-dairy milk for dairy. And then I imagine the non-dairy yogurt is probably in place of sour cream. I could be totally guessing, but, and this is 350 degrees. You line 3 8-inch rounds and it is going in for 15 minutes. You're poking holes in it. And then you're making your cream cheese frosting out of non-dairy butter. For all the OGs, you would use probably Amish butter, some kind of good butter that you love. Cream cheese, powdered sugar, vanilla bean paste again, and sea salt. Oh yeah, totally diabetic. This is not diabetic friendly. I'm sorry. You're going to have to take an extra shot that day. But it could be worth it if you're a cake lover. You may want to take an extra shot for this cake, is what I'm saying. Make your own decisions. Viewer discretion is advised. The next recipe, I'm going to be making this weekend. I bought all the stuff for it because of how good this looked. But she's putting this on a piece of chicken. You can see it here. The kicker is, I think you have to make your own chicken cutlets for this recipe to be the bomb. I know some people like store-bought fried chicken. You could do this. You could go get some chicken strips and put the same mixture over it. If you've never made chicken cutlets, I'll try to find the recipe that we use to make chicken cutlets, because there's an Italian lady who has a channel, shows you the best way to make the most fork tender chicken cutlets, and they're cooked all the way through. They've got a Parmesan pecorino crust on them, and they're absolutely awesome. So this weekend we're going to do that and have this with it. Yeah, that wouldn't be pretty though, Stephen. I better read the recipes and showing you all than actually putting an apron on and, cooking over the heat. Although that would probably do better in some of the places that I'm streaming right now, like Kick and Twitch. People like to see people in the kitchen. But for this,
so much sense, and I'm kicking myself for not doing it sooner. We're just going to slice a couple of chicken breasts in half and then dredge them through some seasoned flour into beaten egg, and then finish in some seasoned panko breadcrumbs and parmesan, then into a little bit of oil until they're crispy on the outside and cook through the center. Then we're going to make a delicious sauce with some butter, garlic and seasoning, and then stir in our tomato puree alongside some chicken stock and cream. Then stir through some parmesan, and instead of putting pasta underneath the chicken, we're going to stir it through the sauce and then put it on top of the chicken. Then you can top with mozzarella, and then you can pop it under the grill or the broiler just until the cheese melts and finish with lots of Parmesan. Then you have my orzo chicken Parmesan. I've gone with a little side salad and some garlic bread. It is crispy and cheesy, and it might not be traditional, but it's definitely delicious. So definitely give it a go. You're going to absolutely love it. This recipe makes so much sense.
So yeah, giving that a run. And I'm looking up the recipe for the chicken cutlet for Yolanda. It's a little bit more complex than just beating the hell out of a chicken breast. You could do it that way. It just might not be fork tender is the only thing there. Because there's a certain way she goes about the whole process. And you're talking straight up Italian lady. So for me, like the first time we made them, I'm like, this is the way to do the chicken cutlets. If you're doing an unhealthy meal, definitely not healthy chicken cutlets, but the really good chicken cutlets, absolutely. So if you want to do this recipe, there's not really a recipe for me to read. He kind of explained everything, but if you want the video to watch back later, if you haven't already signed up for the spam mail, sign up for the spam mail. I'll email it to you after the show. And I won't share your email with anybody, by the way. Maybe I didn't mention that the first couple of times. If you sign up for the spam mail, you'll get an email from me. Now you may see others because I'm not sending out the email individually. You're on a spam list, so you'll be able to contact each other. But I'm not going to sell your data or give it away. Let's see. Okay, we'll skip this one and let me see if I can pull up this recipe real quick. Talk amongst yourselves for a minute. This will only take a second. We're going to skip this recipe and I'm going to insert, since we've got the one that we just watched, we're going to watch the chicken cutlet video.
Chicken cutlets. I've been getting thousands of tags since I made them of everybody making them and loving them. So today I'm going to show you again. I'm making them for Sunday dinner. So let's make my viral chicken cutlets. I won't even. Okay, so the first thing you got to do is you got to take off any gooky part of the chicken and don't worry about waste.
First of all, if anybody sounds like that and they're giving you recipes for anything Italian, it's legit.
Chicken, guys, believe me, it's worth it. You don't want to bite into something because then you get completely turned off with the whole thing. So just clean it up nice. Okay, so then what you do is you cut the breast long ways like this. You see that? You cut it like this and not too thick, because you want to thin them out.
What's up, Goal? Yeah, agreed, Carrie. So this cut that she's making long ways, this to me, if you think about cutting a steak, it's very similar. Like you cut against the grain instead of with a grain, especially with like skirt steaks and stuff. Well, a chicken or chicken breast has grains just like beef. And the way that she's cutting this, in my opinion, is what makes it fork tender. But you just got to watch the magic. She also doesn't beat the hell out of it, which is a plus because who wants to be sitting there beating a chicken breast to death?
You cut them like this and you do the whole breast just like that, long ways. And basically the reason why they're fork tender, and I've proved it to everyone. When I first made this video, everybody called me a freaking liar. Okay? They call me a liar. And then they all did it and they're like, wait, it is true. It does work. So you cut through the membrane and it makes it more tender. It's the way you cut the chicken. So now everybody knows and everybody's loving it. Okay, so I cut up, these are 6 chicken breasts. I have 6 eggs over here with salt and pepper. And over here we have the 4C breadcrumbs. I put fresh pecorino romano, extra parsley. So that's what we got going on. And in my egg, you know that I put Italian dressing. So we're going to go in and we're just going to squeeze like some like this. I've seen people put a whole bottle in it. You don't need to do that. You just need like that.
Also, if you see someone with these pans, loaded up, about to make chicken, they know what's up.
You know, like this much. Okay, so you get your chicken cutlet, one wet hand, one dry hand. Don't mix them up because then you make a mess. So you put it in the egg mixture like this. Then you grab it, you put it in here, you go like this. And then what you do is you like put some muscle into it, okay? Listen, this is another reason to work out your arms. You want a reason? Kill two birds with one stone. You make your chicken cutlets and you get a little exercise on your arms. And you see how they come out? They're huge, these chicken cutlets. I'm gonna do the rest of them like that. Okay, so now we're gonna fry up all those cutlets. And we're putting, I'm using, what is this? A vegetable oil. You could use canola oil, whatever you use to fry, you put a nice amount. Guys, look at this pile of heaven. These were 6 chicken breasts, but look, we've got about 100 chicken cutlets here. We also have a bunch of other stuff going on. It's Sunday, I'm cooking. I got my simple sauce going on here. I'm gonna post a video. I'm making a side dish with string beans over here. I have in the oven, I have some potatoes baking. So I'm gonna post all different videos for all the different things I did, but just letting you guys know to look for them. Okay, so now we're gonna start frying them up like this. Now when you grab one, right, shake it a little bit, and then you put it in. Okay, now you flip them. Golden is perfect. Okay, so now we're gonna take them out like this, and now we're gonna do the rest of them. I mean, guys, look at how many chicken cutlets we have going on.
That's from like 1 pack of chicken breasts, the way that she's cutting them. You got a whole plate. So again, you know, may not be as fun as beating a chicken breast to death, Landa, but one huge chicken breast to make like, I don't know, 6 cutlets or something. And they're thin and crispy, but not dry. And to me, you know, I trust this recipe. Give it a run. Let's see. The next one, I don't like crock pot recipes, but I tried to throw in one for y'all. Something easy, something you can throw together before you go slave the day away and come home with an empty belly. If you've got to use a crock pot, here's a recipe.
To Cold Weather Classics, Episode 7. Tonight for dinner, we're making one of my favorites. Salsa verde white chicken chili with tons of toppings. Here's your bite. Here's my bite.
That is my best version yet.
And here's how to make it. I've been making a version of the soup for about 10 years now, and let me tell you, this was my best version yet. And there are a few reasons why. First up, we're making the salsa verde from scratch. This adds a freshness and a depth that just can't be replicated by jarred versions. So once everything is nice and charred, let it cool for a little bit, then add it to a blender, peel your garlic, and add in the rest of the seasonings, blend, and set it aside. Next, we're searing chicken thighs in a bit of olive oil until golden and cooked through. That's the second reason this version is better. Chicken thighs stay juicier and just...
I mean, there's a couple things here. She's making her own sauce and she's using chicken thighs. Those may be saving graces, but I'm sorry, people, you cannot convince me that everything in a crock pot doesn't taste like a crock pot. It don't matter what it is. You can cook anything in a crock pot. It's going to taste like a crock pot. You could have 17 meals and one of them's made in a crock pot. You're blindfolded. You're going to know which one was a crock pot meal. Let's continue.
Make the broth a little richer. Once the chicken is cooked through, remove and set aside and saute your poblano, jalapeno, and onion with a pinch of salt and pepper. Once soft, add the bay leaf, as much garlic as you like, clear center in the pan, add in a little extra oil, and pour your seasonings into toast to really bring out their flavor. I also added in a frozen hatch chili, which is delicious, but you can skip that or replace it with some green chilies as well. I added in a splash of non-alcoholic beer to deglaze the pot, but that's completely optional. And finally, the last reason why this version is the best, blend 1 can of beans with a ladle of hot broth, then stir it back into the pot. It makes the chili creamy without making it too
You know what?
thick. It's
Maybe this isn't a
add the
crock
shredded
pot
chicken along
recipe.
with the other can of whole beans to the pot. Remove the bay leaf and then turn the heat off and finish with your lime
I've been
zest,
talking trash
juice,
this whole time.
crema, and cilantro. Give that a stir. Season with salt and pepper to taste.
It's a
And when
pot
done,
recipe.
ladle into bowls. Add plenty of your favorite toppings and enjoy.
Okay, I approve.
Welcome back to Cold Weather.
I approve. And I'm sorry, it's not a crock pot recipe. I just ragged on crock pots for 10 minutes for no reason. Valid, though. I'm sorry. No, I will not apologize for the crock pot hate. But this soup actually looks good. And it's going to be in your email if you sign up for the spam mail list. I forget what you told me to name that, Carrie. It's going to be the spam mail list, but you said something spam mail, and I can't remember. The last recipe's a joke, by the way. There was a few comments I was going to read, though. Look at this. Look at this monstrosity. It's called a jambon parasole. And it looks like something out of the 70s. You remember when they used to put everything in Jell-O molds? Like when, or maybe even earlier than that, maybe like the 50s, when insane people would put like tuna in Jell-O molds. That is what this is. So check this out. We don't need the music. Look at this. Look at that. What is that? I might rather have a crock pot meal than to eat this, honestly. No, thank you. I ate tomorrow. What's the matter, honey? You haven't touched your ham in grass. I think that's the one that cracked me up. You haven't touched your ham and grass. Jell-O. Ham and grass cello. Are you giving this a run? Who's giving the ham and grass Jell-O a run? I don't know. Not me. But on that note, I try to keep our list from last week. Cosmic Cravings. Yes. Okay. I'll update that. Let me see. I think I can do that in real time. Da, 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 da. I don't know if you guys have any plans for Saturday, but we're going to have a guest and it's going to be fun. And you'll hear more about it tomorrow. For spam mail. Yeah, I think that looks good. I might have worded this okay. I'll put it back up. There. I fixed it, Gary. Crumbles. Landa, Carrie said it first. We'll do crumbles next week. I'll just change it every week. Okay, so let's get into some stories. Last week, I think we left off with this cleaning chemical story. If I start reading this and it sounds familiar, I'm going to stop and we'll go to the next one because I think this is where we left off. And this is in the question on this Reddit thread is, what are some of the most eerie and unexplained stories that you have? So, first story of the evening is, okay, let me preface this by saying I categorically do not believe in the supernatural of any kind. I'm not religious and consider myself agnostic, leaning atheist. I have no clue why this is happening. I've owned the same house for over 23 years. It began almost immediately. My spoons have been disappearing at an alarming rate. It happens in my house too. At first, I put it off to the kids, but it didn't stop even after they had moved out. I lived alone for many years and the spoons would still vanish. I've checked the garbage. I searched corners and every place where they could conceivably be and not be. I once purchased 120 metal spoons and they were all gone within a year and a half, more than 10 per month. Oddly, the plastic spoons also disappear, but much more slowly. I will count and keep track of them and that slows it down, but they somehow keep vanishing. My granddaughters now live with me, but it doesn't seem to be a factor. It's worse in the fall for some reason. I estimate I've lost more than 1,000 spoons somewhere in this house and can't find them. No, I'm not senile or crazy. Others have noticed the spoon thing here. I can't explain and have stopped trying. I don't care if anyone believes this or not, but you asked and I was in the mood to top it out. I've just counted. I'm down to 7 spoons, 3 teaspoons, and 4 tablespoons. 3 teaspoons are missing since I checked sometime last month. So the first comment is, sir or ma'am, you have a raccoon living in the walls of your house. And I'm dead serious. They're like rats, can squeeze through any opening and they can't just make. And they steal because, like crows, they are extremely intelligent and value shiny things. They can identify and associate objects by shape. The plastic might intrigue them because it's solid but a transparent object. Check thoroughly around the property and under your house if you can. There might be hordes of silverware stashed away. We had raccoons in our shed one year, and they kept taking my wrenches and any nails, screws and nuts, washers, anything like that left lying around. And the rest of the comments just divulge, gets way worse from there. But yeah, I think if I was losing 10 spoons a month, I'd be going around the house with a metal detector. Like I'd be sweeping the walls with a metal detector, which may not work because of the wiring, or like a magnet. Cause even if you took like a stud finder, like one of the old ones that's magnetic, if you caught the spoon, you'd be able to hear like the jingle or something. Yeah, but this was in his house, Morgana. In his house. He says he has like 1,000 spoons a year go missing from his drawer. I don't know how the crows would be getting in the house. But if first of all, I'm setting up a camera. If I'm losing 10 spoons a month, I'm positioning the camera onto the spoon drawer. That should solve the case. If it doesn't solve that case, then you have like a ghost or a poltergeist that's taking your spoons. I'm sorry. The crows would have to be opening the door or getting in through a window and then opening this man's spoon drawer and stealing both his silver and plastic spoons. Landa, there's logical explanations though, especially if you have people living with you who are prone to carrying objects out of the house. That is prone to happen in this house. And I absolutely have went out and bought just packs of spoons and forks before to replace ones that have disappeared over the years. I think so too, Morgana. I think they get thrown away. I think people keep them in their cars. And you got to think about this. If your children or grandchildren are packing off cups and spoons and plates and stuff, and you have ridiculed them in the past for doing so, what are they going to do? Would they rather pack in a handful of spoons and forks and plates and cups in front of you, or just pitch them and blame it on the raccoon in the walls or the poltergeist that's stealing all your stuff? I'm just saying that that's something to think about. This one's a short one. For 1 month. Oh, no. Maybe that's the same thing. Oh, okay. Next story is, for decades, I've had a disturbing dream about, it's from the viewpoint of my backyard of my grandparents' house. It says for decades. Later in life, after they had passed on, my dad bought the place. I never mentioned the bad dreams because it seemed silly, but it was weird to me that this went on for years. 2 weeks ago, my dad went out to that spot in the backyard and offed himself. Terrible story. Terrible story. Heathens. In my sophomore algebra class, a kid named Brian was drawing with his friends on the whiteboard. We were not friends and we barely talked. He was drawing a dragon, and I was on the other side of the room halfway listening. He said, "Instead of fire, I'm going to make him breathe. Instead of fire, I'm going to make him breathe." And in my head, I thought, it'd be cool if he breathed cupcakes. And dead ass Brian looked at me and said cupcakes. And we just looked at each other, and he knew and I knew, and it was no coincidence. Yeah. Algebra 2, and someone read his mind. My father's 2 sisters each lost her husband within a year of each other. The husbands had been friends, so they ended up buying cemetery plots next to each other. So at the end of the second funeral, we're lowering Uncle B into his grave. Suddenly, I hear a sizzle. You never want to hear a sizzle in a graveyard. So they hear a sizzle. I look up, and instead of a graveyard, I'm in my backyard, and Uncle B is grilling. Uncle A, who's been dead for a year, says to me, "Do you want some lamb?" Before I can answer, I blink again, and I'm back in the graveyard. I tell people that's my seeing a ghost story, but I've considered that maybe it was a vision of the other side. Or that sounds like more like parallel dimensions or a glitch in the matrix story to me anyway. There's been a lot of instances where people see people who have passed away in a completely different setting. I believe in glitch in the matrix stuff. I've seen some pretty compelling stories, and hopefully someday we can get some people submitting their own glitch in the matrix stories. My father's, we just read that one. There's a pediatrician crossing near my place that I always cross. And for some reason, for the last couple of weeks, I'd feel really, really uneasy whenever I walked across. Then just last Sunday, I got hit by a car that failed to stop while it was crossing. Good Lord. And this person says, "I bet your guardian angel warned you." Yeah. Yeah. That is pretty odd. I've never been at a funeral where I don't know that I've ever been at a funeral where I like sense a presence in the funeral home or graveyard in that moment anyway. Obviously, I've explored a lot of graveyards. We kind of have a little bit of a paranormal background. So been to a ton of graveyards, done a lot of exploration over the years. I've seen stuff, heard stuff, but never like somebody I knew, or that I knew anyway. This story probably isn't that weird, but when I was sitting outside a building, this woman walked up to me and told me she had a dream where she saw me sitting in the same spot wearing the same white t-shirt. It wasn't a creepy encounter or anything, and she thought it was weird too. It's a shorty. A lot of these Reddit accounts are deleted too. So, I mean, these stories were submitted 8 years ago. So, we could probably scroll on this thread for another 8 months. But next week, I think I'm going to change it up from like glitchy, matrixy top stuff to maybe we'll read something maybe a little more humorous. We'll see. Just not Morgana's kind of humorous. I was 8 years old. I was awakened in the middle of the night, needing to go to the bathroom. On my way down the hallway, lights off, I saw faintly the vacuum cleaner lying on the floor. So I stepped over it, went to the bathroom, turned on the light and shut the door. When I finished, I opened the bathroom door, light shone in the hallway, but there was no vacuum cleaner there. So anyway, ghost vacuum cleaner. I've had stuff like that happen where you're like on the edge of sleep, or you just wake up and you think something's there for a split second. If the vacuum cleaner normally lives in the hallway, that's more of a condition and response. Plus, this person just woke up. I'm probably going to debunk that as You're half asleep. Let's see what else we got. When I was 6, my grandparents took me to this Christian youth type revival event. There were skits about resisting the devil, sing songs for Jesus, gymnastic exhibitions for Jesus, guys in karate gear breaking boards for Jesus, things like that. In between the acts, the presenters would give small speeches about how important God was and how the devil's agents were among us, waiting to harm us. One thing stuck with me because it was really grim. He told of how Satanists were kidnapping people and eating them. That sounds pretty familiar lately, huh? Police just across the border had found a hell house. And in that house was a witch's cauldron filled with human body parts coming from a young man who had been taken right off the streets. The boy had been kidnapped, tortured, murdered, and then made into a stew that the Satanists ate to give them magic powers. Remind you of something, don't it? The presenter told us kids, and this was in the summer of 1988. Years later, curious, I looked up the incident. A student named Mark Kilroy had in fact been kidnapped, tortured, murdered, put in a cauldron. That's not the kind of stews we like here, by a cult leader and his followers in order to give them immunity from the police and other cartels. All the details fit, except that this happened in March of 1989, the year after the youth revival. How did the presenters know about the murder? Were they talking about another murder, or did I end up in a Christian-themed time slip? I asked my grandmother about it. She said she had no idea what I was talking about and denied ever taking me to a youth revival. All these years, I've never been able to explain it. Well, there is, in fact, a conspiracy about certain, oh God, certain factions of religious dogma that started the satanic panic, and it gets really, really dark. But depending on where this person lived, I would say if they lived maybe around Utah, that maybe they could have had pre-knowledge about it. Morgana says, we used to have a radio that would flip on all hours of the night. It took us a week to realize that the plasma lamp on top of the stereo was on every time it happened. Moved it somewhere else and it quit happening. I had no idea a plasma lamp could turn on the radio. That's neat. And Landa, what are you doing? We ain't cooking nobody in a cauldron or a crock pot on this show. Okay, this one might be juicy. I'm gonna need a little drink. Okay. I used to be on a search and rescue patrol. We got a very strange call one night. A loud car crash in the middle of a rural area was reported by a nearby resident, but when the emergencies showed up, the victims were nowhere to be found. So we show up to the scene, and at the end of a very, very long dirt road, there was a 90-degree turn with an embankment. The car was clearly going at a high rate of speed, missed the 90-degree turn, hit the embankment, flew through the air, and the front of the car hit the ground so hard that it gouged out a pretty sizable hole upon impact. The windshield showed 2 shattered impact zones where the passengers' heads hit, covered in blood and hair. There was more blood in and around the car. The scene was gruesome and didn't look like a survivable crash, especially given the mangled condition of the car. We expected to find bodies nearby. Police dogs, firefighters, and now an entire search and rescue party were unable to locate the victims after several hours. As night set in, it began to get more and more eerie. There was this horrible looking car crash, but no bodies to be found. Finally, after about 3 hours of searching, there was a 911 call that came in, a report of a bloodied, dead body found in the bed of a parked pickup truck in a rural home's driveway a couple of miles away. Apparently, a family was coming home from a vacation, and when they pulled into their driveway, they noticed the body immediately and called 911. So 2 police units dispatched from the search and respond call. We all assumed this would be the end of the story. Well, the police showed up to the house, and to everyone's surprise, no body could be found. That is creepy. And somehow the bodies had vanished. All of them. There was blood, but no signs of anything else. So a second search radius started from that house, and we practically searched all night. We're called back the next morning, and nobody ever found the bodies from either place. And eventually the search was called off. To this day, I have no idea what happened. That is creepy. I don't know what could have happened to those bodies, because I watched a YouTube video a couple weeks ago where somebody was driving erratically, and just like this said, they showed basically exit areas out of the windshield where somebody had flew out. In this YouTube video, there's like an explosion out of the windshield, and they find this dude like, I don't know, a football field away because of how far he traveled, because of how fast he was going. But I imagine that these first responders did their due diligence. So, yeah, that's a creepy one. We got time for a couple more. These are some short ones. So this user says, I'm late to the party, but the story is both freaky and super inexplicable. When I was a kid, like 12, 13, I was playing with my friends in their backyard. It was a perfect summer day outside, probably around 80 degrees and not a cloud in the sky. This detail is very important. We're playing and I'm chasing my friend, but suddenly I stop because I notice something strange. What's up, Alan? I don't think I've seen you here yet, Alan. This is my cooking show. It's cooking and strange stuff. All kinds of strange stuff. We're past the cooking portion, but we're still doing the strange portion. And there's the ticker down there. If you miss the recipes, if you're listening and you miss the recipes and want the recipes every week, go to the link tree, and there's a spam mail section, and hit the spam mail, put your email in, and I will send you recipes every week. Even if you can't attend the show, you're going to get spam mail from me. So if you want that. So when I was a kid, like 12, 13, I was playing with my friends in their backyard. It was a perfect summer day outside, probably around 80 degrees and not a cloud in the sky. This detail is important. So we're playing and I'm chasing my friend, but suddenly I stop because I notice something strange. I exhale and I realize that I can see my breath just as you would on a really cold day. Called my friends over and they thought I was smoking or something because of how thick the vapor was. None of them can see their own breath until they are standing right next to me, and it was only happening in that one specific spot. We walked around, but that was only in that one area that it was visible. All of us ended up just going home because we were pretty freaked out. Should be on both, Alan. Should be a little bit of everywhere. I've got it on Twitter. We're on Rumble, Kick, Twitch. There was a legit person talking on Kick a while ago, by the way. That's my new Kick mod. But I don't know how you could explain seeing your breath outside if it's 80 degrees. I'm thinking, because he doesn't mention it actually being cold, but sometimes certain gases could create that. Yeah. Like maybe if there was a gas leak in that certain area or some kind of gas leaking in that particular spot, Because if it was gas that was offsetting or like creating a space to where you would be able to see water vapor in the air, it could be anything. There could have been a little gap where super cold air was coming out from a cave system if they were in the woods. There's just he says it was in the backyard though. So I'm not sure. That one kind of freaks me out a little bit. I can't immediately explain that one away. It just hit me, Alan. I think on Facebook, I don't do Facebook, so Morgana is letting me post to her Facebook. So that must be where you're watching right now. Anywho, we got time for one more crazy story, and this one is when I was a kid, my parents watched the same local news station on TV every single morning. So I got to know the sound of the reporters' voices after some time. But a lot of times, especially on the weekends, I'd hear the news. So I'd go downstairs in the living room to see who was up. But the TV wouldn't be on and no one would be awake. The only noise would be the sound of the water in the fish tank in the dining area. I've fallen for it countless times because it sounds like their exact voices. I know this isn't the most exciting story, but it was a really creepy occurrence, and I'm not exactly sure what was causing the sound. On top of that, my older sister heard the voices too, so it wasn't just my imagination running wild. If it was her trying to prank me, then she probably would have admitted it by now because it's been several years, but we both still swear by our story. We've lived in other houses before and we've moved out of the house since then, and we've never had the same problem like this. Lord, I'll hit one more. We'll hit one more. We got 3 minutes. So I'm going to blast through this one. Okay. So me, my 12-year-old brother, and my dad visit Pakistan to see some relatives. This was my first ever trip to Pakistan, as I'm from the UK. And so everything came as a shock to me, but the most chilling thing I've ever experienced was during this trip. We all go to a family member's house, and me and my younger brother decide to go upstairs alone and just explore the house. We'd been there for 3 hours and we're bored. They're 12, if you didn't catch that. I think I need to explain that my brother is always joking, never serious, not even for a single second. And this is the only time I've ever seen him serious with fear and dread in my life. We go up the stairs, down the hallway, and there's a completely pitch dark room, which I'm currently walking toward. And I look back and see him frozen on the stairs, just staring into the room in horror. Me being confused, I ask, what is wrong? And he says something coming from a joker like him. That part doesn't make any sense. Sent chills. Oh, okay. Sent chills down my spine. This whole place isn't right. There's so much pain and so much suffering here. And then he ran downstairs, not saying a single word until we left the house. When I asked him, he just kept saying, the house is messed up. I'm not going back there. Something is wrong with that family. 7 years later, so they would have been 19, I get the full truth after my dad reluctantly told me the story, and this makes everything 1,000 times worse. The house used to belong to a guy who essayed his daughter, who had severely disabled triplets, and when this happened, he murdered them all and threw himself in front of a moving train. There's no way my brother could have lied about this, faked, or even known about this story, considering neither of us can speak the language. And he still says that his whole body told him to stay away from the upstairs area, and he had terrifying thoughts just looking in the room. He's the type of person that if he was lying, to just admit he was lying 2 minutes later so he can laugh in your face about it. And what he sensed about this history is just unexplainable as far as how he knew that. Yeah, it's every Thursday at 7 Eastern. Alan. And next week we're going to have a guest, Caitlin, who's been on Wearing the Folk a bunch. She's going to join me and we're going to talk about food and spooky stories. Every other Thursday, I said this at the beginning of the show, but we're going to be doing, first and foremost, if anybody submits any stories, and I'll pull up the link tree just to give you a visual here. So if anybody submits any stories, the first thing we're doing is reading stories. And I don't know why this changed from dark mode. I'll have to look at that. But anywho, you can click share your story. You can give your name. It doesn't have to be your real name if you want to stay anonymous. It's just me that's going to be seeing it. So if you do want to stay anonymous, you could just put like, I want to stay anonymous. But you can submit your stories. You can share your recipes with us. There's a form you can submit your recipes. And then maybe the most important link here is if you plop your email in here, you're going to get every week's worth of recipes. You're going to get, if there's any crazy show updates in the future, I'll shoot out a note, but this is it. And then the rest of the links are just where you can watch. And then obviously there's Kick and Twitch that's not on down there. But anywho, we got the official spam mail sign up list. 6 Central, 5 Mountain, 4 Pacific. I'm probably going on too early, honestly, but I can't be doing this all night. We got shows this weekend. We're doing it up. I'm just doing this for the love of the game. I try to use different voices to tell the stories. I haven't been, there was no dialogue today for me to use a weird voice or anything, but I'm going to do my best. I'll do my absolute best. Anywho, thanks everyone for jumping on this evening for the stream. I'll be back tomorrow, not on the show, but on our regular shows. If you know, you know. And we're going to have a pretty jam-packed weekend. And I will be back here next week, 7 p.m. Eastern. Be here. If you can't be here, sign up for the spam list. If you're watching this after the fact, go to the link tree. It's Cosmic Crumbs with a 0 instead of an O. And even if you can't join the show, you're going to get all the recipes. But thanks, everybody. And on that note, I will talk to you next week. Submit your stories, submit your recipes, and thank you for watching. Peace.